Hi everyone. In this video I am going to explain about SQL Loader functionality from the Oracle database. Generally in real time the users may ask you to load the data or records from the Excel sheet into the database. In those requirements you may prepare the insert queries and you may execute all those insert queries from the command line or some UI like Toad or SQL developer. But preparing insert queries will take some time. Instead of that, we can use the SQL Loader functionality also to load the data into the database. This will be fast than loading via insert statements. So when loading the bulk records from an Excel sheet, we can use the SQL Loader functionality instead of directly preparing the queries and executing them against the database. In this video, I will explain how to load the employee records, their first name, last name, and the city and the date of birth into the Oracle database table. Okay, assume this is an Excel sheet provided by the users. Assume in this Excel the records can be 20,000 or 50,000 also, but right now for this example I have created 3 records. You can see this first name, last name, the city and the date of birth. Okay, we will try to load these records into the table. Let us see the table. The table I am going to use is EMP SQL Loader. Right now the table is not created. I am creating in the real time. You will have already this table ready, or you can create depending on the requirement. Right now I am creating one table. It has first name, last name, city and date of birth, DOB. Now my requirement is to load these 3 records from the Excel sheet into the EMP SQL Loader table. So my table is ready. Right now the table is empty. So the first thing I have to do is we can convert this into CSV file, means comma separated file. How to do that is go to file, save as, select CSV comma delimited this format and save it. So what we are doing here, click OK, click yes. What we are doing here, we are converting the Excel sheet into the CSV file. That means CSV is a comma separated file. That means it will internally records will be like Venkat, comma, Kumar, comma, Hyderabad in the CSV formatted file. Okay, so the first step is to convert that into CSV file. There will be many options. Right now I am converting into CSV format and loading that into the database. Then see the steps. First convert the Excel sheet into CSV file, means comma separated. So all the values will be comma separated in the CSV file. Then we have to prepare a file called control file. The purpose of the control file is to specify what is the file from which we need to load the data and into which table, and all those related details we will specify in the control file. Once we prepare the control file, then we have to invoke SQL Loader command and we have to specify the control file. Then by using the contents given in the control file, it will understand what is the input file name and what is the table name to into which the data should be loaded from the file. So let us go to this step is completed. First we have converted the Excel sheet into CSV format. Then prepare the control file. I have already prepared that. I will explain line by line. Go to here, prepare a file and save it as .ctl control file. So I have saved it as CTL. The extension is CTL. I am editing this and see, first you have to specify load data and then in file. That means we are specifying to the SQL loader from which file the data should be retrieved. In the sense, since we are trying to load the data from the CSV file, so we have to specify that file name for the in file property. You can think like property value. So the in file, so that means load the data from the file called or test sqlm.csv. So to the in file, you have to specify the path of the file which contains the data, and then you have to specify the bad file. That means while loading the data, if there are any errors, that means suppose you are expecting a column to be a date format, but in Excel if you have given a non-date format or wrong date format, then the bad file will contain the details of those records that are failed. Next, then we are specifying, we will see this in an example, and we are specifying to load the data given in the CSV file into the table emp SQL loader. This is the file I am using. Can you see right now there is no data. Now you have to specify what is the format, I mean how are the values delimited in the file. Since you have converted the Excel file into the CSV, every field will be internally separated by comma. That is the reason I have converted the Excel sheet into CSV. So I am specifying if the data is separated by some other character, you have to specify that character here. But in my case, since I have converted the Excel sheet into the CSV file, the first name, last name, city and all those will be delimited, means separated by comma in the CSV file. So that's why I have given the comma here. Then you have to specify the corresponding columns, first name, last name. And can you see what I am doing here is I am inserting the characters of length from 1 to 2. That means if you give 5 characters, I am just inserting only the characters from 1 to 2. That means I am taking only 2 characters from the Excel sheet. The string you have provided may be more than 2 characters, but my requirement is I don't want all the data from the Excel sheet. In the last name, if the content is KUMA or Kumar, but in the table I want only the first 2 characters from the Excel sheet. That is the reason. So that means you can specify the Oracle functions also while loading the data into the table. Then city. So since here I don't want all the characters, I have used this. If there is nothing you want to do, just specify the column name, that's it. And for the date column, you are telling the format in which the data is specified in the Excel file. If you see the Excel file, even you can see the SQL EMP CSV file. It looks like normal Excel file, but since it is comma separated, Internally it will store the values like comma Venkat comma Kumar comma header. Since the format is dd hyphen mm dd mon comma yy, let us see the control file. That is the reason I have given dd hyphen mon hyphen yy. If the format is like this, then you have to specify dd /mon /yy. Then go to, generally you will execute like this, right? The SQL plus command. In the same way, you can invoke the last step. Can you see the last step? Use SQL Loader to load the data from the file into the table. Then go to SQL Loader and give the username, and it will ask the control file. This is the control file, right? Control file specifies the file from which we are retrieving the data, and the other details like into which table we are storing the data in the CSV. That means right now in the control file what we specified, take the data from the CSV file. If there are any errors loading, log those errors in the file name called sql_bad.bad, and load those records into the table called emp SQL Loader. In the CSV file, the values are separated by comma, and while loading, I just want only the first two characters for the last name. That's why I have used the substring function. And for the date, I want to specify the date format in the CSV. In the CSV, the date format is like this. That's why I specify the to SQL Loader that the format in the CSV is dd-mon-yy. So give this control file location. So in the control is equal to, you have given the path for the control file. Click enter, then give the password for the database and click enter. Now can you see? Now we will go to the table and see if any records are inserted. Can you see? It's very easy, right? All the data you provided in the CSV is stored in the table with this control file, and by invoking the SQL Loader functionality. Now see, right now there are no errors. We will create an error. Now I will try to rerun, and can you see the error? So if I rerun, it is saying that table must be empty. That means by default the SQL Loader expects the table to be empty. So if you want to use an existing table, then you have to say append into. Now if you run it again, the records will be appended instead of inserting. Now you can see that there are 6 records. Can you see? If you say append into, the table, the records you are trying to insert from the CSV file will be appended to the existing records. Okay. Now we will see another option. Now we will try to create an error. Hyphen OT hyphen 99. I am intentionally creating an error. Now can you see right now there is no file called SQL bad.bad. Now I am trying to get that error. If you see the format, I am saying that the format will be dd-m1-yy, but the date cannot be 222. So now if I try to run, it will create a bad file saying that one of the record is not satisfying the dd-mon-yy format. Now we will rerun, give SQL loader and the username of the database. HR is the database username, and give the control file. Means you have to specify the path for the control file. Click enter and give the password for the database. Now you see now a file called bad is created. That means out of the 3 records, 1 record is not inserted successfully because the format of the date is not correct. In the control file, you have specified that the format will be dd-mon-yy, but if you see the Excel, I mean the CSV, you have given the DDS 222, which is not a valid date. That is the reason it created a bad file. That means it will contains the errors, means the records which are not satisfied as per the control file. Those will be stored in the SQL bad.bad file. That is the way you have to specify here. You have to specify the file into which the errors will be logged. By default it will create, if you don't specify this bad file option, by default it will create a file name called sqlemp.bad. okay, now you can see that there will be another 2 records inserted. Okay, so if we summarize all the things we have discussed, first convert the Excel sheet into the CSV format, then prepare the control file. In the control file you are specifying load the data from the file called sqlemp.csv, specify the bad file into which the errors will be logged, and specify, if you don't want to overwrite, you have to specify append. If you remove this, the table should be empty, and you are specifying how the fields are terminated internally. So since the file name is the CSV format, by default in the CSV data format all the columns will be comma separated. That's why I have used comma here. If the fields are separated by some other character, you have to specify that, and you can apply Oracle functions also to the columns, and you can specify the format of the data for the loading, and then invoke the SQL loader. Give the SQL LDR and give the database username, enter, give the control file, enter, give the password for the database. Hope you understand. Thank you.